The top story this hour: Council of Ministers approves Ethiopia's 10-year perspective plan. And government sees provocative acts by the Cairo Center for African Studies as serious violation of nation's sovereignty. A very warm welcome to Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed disclosed that the Council of Ministers has today endorsed Ethiopia's 10-year perspective plan. The Premier said the 10-year perspective plan, which has been endorsed by the Cabinet, will enable the country's high growth trajectory and position Ethiopia as an African beacon of prosperity. The plan consists of 10 pillars with unique focus areas on peace building and institutional transformation, the Prime Minister said. The Council of Ministers has also approved the draft media proclamation, which governs print and broadcast media, also introducing a legal framework for online media. Outlining roles and responsibilities in the sector, the proclamation will bolster freedom of expression and press freedoms, the Premier added. Office of the Prime Minister stated that the government has already dispatched 88 trucks of food and medical supplies to Mekelle city and several towns of Tigray region as part of the humanitarian assistance being delivered to the region. A total of 43,100 quintals of food supplies and 10 trucks of medical supplies have reached Mekelle city and other towns of Tigray region, according to the office. It is to be recalled that the federal government formed a high-level committee to oversee humanitarian assistance in the region, led by the Minister of Peace. Following field technical assessments made by the committee, initial dispatch of food and non-food items were made to areas within the Tigray region that were under federal command. In the areas where the criminal Klex militia were still active, considering the security threats that were prevalent at the time, delivery was delayed to ensure that humanitarian assistance reached the intended recipients, says the statement. However, the situation has changed since Mekelle came under federal command, concluding the active military intervention to apprehend the criminal clique. The government of Ethiopia has urged Eritrean refugees not to move out of refugee camps in an irregular manner. In a statement today, the State of Emergency Fact-Check Office said a large number of misinformed Eritrean refugees are moving out in an irregular manner, particularly from Tigray's Maya Aini and Adi Harush refugee camps to Addis Ababa. According to the statement, such an unregulated movement of the refugees with high dependence on aid will create difficulties in ensuring their safety, security, dignity, and in providing a coordinated protection and assistance. At this point in time, the areas in Tigray region in which the Eritrean refugee camps are situated are stable, given that they are under the full control of the federal government, the statement noted. The statement indicates the government is also working tirelessly to fully reactivate and continue provision of critical life-saving services to the refugees, as well as to ensure a safe and secure operating environment for frontline responders, as a result of which transport of food to the camps is underway, among other things. According to the statement, the government is safely returning those refugees to their respective camps, where they can have access to service delivery systems, and more importantly, they can live lawfully and peacefully with the communities that host them. Ethiopia has a very long and cherished history of hospitality and generosity to people who are forcibly displaced due to the man-made and natural calamities. Currently, it is providing protection to nearly 1 million refugees, mainly from South Sudan, Somalia, Eritrea and Sudan, sheltered in 26 camps and non-camp locations. The Ethiopian refugee operation is now home to close to 200,000 Eritrean refugees across the country, and most of them are mainly sheltered in Tigray and Afar regions, as well as in Addis Ababa.
We don't confuse a country and a government. We want you to understand that. Not today, even 100 years ago. We gave our neck to be free from colonialism. Victory is Ethiopia. No individual will sell his or her country for their benefit. We love peace, we work for peace, and you have to understand that. And if you understand what's ours, you should collaborate with us. No matter poverty we're in, will not give in our pride to others. Don't blame us. It's not our fault. This is in our blood, transmitted from our fathers. Well, money will not pressure us. You can only work together with us. You cannot win Ethiopia when you have Ethiopians living here.
President Sahle-Work Zewde said appropriate praise is crucial to the bravery of Ethiopian Defense Force due to its commitment to keep Ethiopia's sovereignty by blocking the provoking attacks of the TPLF clique. The remark came during a recognition program for those who provided multifaceted support for the Defense Force that successfully completed the law enforcement operation in the state of Tigray. It was indicated on the occasion that the Addis Ababa city administration has raised more than 1.5 billion for the National Defense Forces. Habtam Ashagre presents the story as follows.
The Addis Ababa City Administration has organized a ceremony to give recognition for residents of Addis Ababa City for their all-rounded support to the National Defense Force in the state of Tigray. After the calling of the nation to support the National Defense Force, Addis Ababa City residents have contributed over 1.5 billion. Speaking on the occasion, President Sahle-Work Zewde said appreciation and great honor is essential for the National Defense Force for their successful law enforcement operation in the state of Tigray.
After those difficult times and challenges over the past weeks, we all Ethiopians are proud due to the National Defense Force effective and bravery law enforcement operation against the TPLF clique in the state of Tigray.
According to the president, the coming generation will always commemorating the bravery and sacrifice of the National Defense Force to save Ethiopia from TPLF mafias.
While implementing the law enforcement operation in the state of Tigray, we lost our people. But all sacrifice has paid to protect Ethiopia and Ethiopians. Thus, the history of these peoples is like a blinking star for us.
The chief of Ethiopian Army, Birhanu Jula, on his part said the provoking attack on the Northern Command cementing Ethiopia's unity across the nation.
If the war is justifiable, you can win. If it is not, you lose it. You have 80% winning chance if you have involved on reasonable war. It is better that we are not started this war. This creates an opportunity for us to be the war is logical. Because of TPLF junta's inhuman deeds and treasonous act, the Defense Force has been fighting TPLF with great bravery.
Addis Ababa Deputy Mayor Adanech Abebe on her part sends thankful message to Addis Ababa residents to their relentless support to the National Defense Force.
We have no words to express the role of the National Defense Force to our country. We want to say again and again thank you and respect you. As part of this move, the city administration has been working along with stakeholders to collect and provide over 1.5 billion birr to the National Defense Force.
The deputy mayor appreciates the bravery role of women soldiers in the National Defense Force to finalize the law enforcement operation in the state of Tigray. Various government officials, defense force members, as well as other invited guests have attended the program.
As Ethiopia finds itself in the midst of a manhunt on TPLF leaders after winning all the battle fronts in Tigray, some international actors are pushing with their divisive agendas to try and tarnish the nation's image. ETV presented a webinar on the current law enforcement operation against the rebel TPLF organized by the Cairo Center for African Studies. These are open provocations against Ethiopians and a violation of Ethiopia's sovereignty, says spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Dina Mufti in an exclusive interview with a TV here today. Gushmal reports.
With a record of hosting personalities of controversial nature, the organizer, the Cairo Center for African Studies, has invited William Davison, Rashid Abdi, and Jetil Tronvol. While all of these are foreigners with their own biases, the center is poking its nose on a strictly internal affairs by invoking comments incongruent with the reality in Ethiopia. Commenting on the matter, Dina said the move defies international law and is a clear encroachment on Ethiopia's sovereignty, adding that Ethiopia will take this as a serious violation.
This is a kind of an agenda that really would embarrass any proud nation on the planet Earth. The international relation has its own rules and regulations whereby states, countries, nations should respect each other. Otherwise, the globe will be a place for anarchy. And in this case, the sovereignty of a nation has to be respected, it has to be seriously observed.
The event scheduled for December 15 is an attempt by the so-called Cairo Institute to blow the law enforcement operation in Tigray out of proportion, as he said. According to Dina, the event and similar encroachment against Ethiopia depict sheer ignorance of deliberate hypocrisy. The Institute's move is offensive and ridiculous for Tigrayans who are proudly Ethiopian, he said. The likes of William Davison, Rashid Abdi and Tronvol have all been propagating a slanted view of the current situation in Ethiopia this week. All of them have been unashamedly describing the conflict as a civil war and Ethiopia's separation of Tigray.
No one should dwell with the internal affairs of other countries. After all, it is shameful for such an institute or organ, whatever organ it is, to call it Ethio-Tigray conflict. This is sheer ignorance or deliberate hypocrisy. Tigray is part and parcel of Ethiopia. Tigray is Ethiopia and Ethiopia is Tigray. It's quite ridiculous on the part of this institute to dichotomize this and talk about Tigray versus Ethiopia, where this is an offense to Tigrayans. Tigrayan people are proud of Ethiopia. These are one of the nations and nationalities that have built Ethiopia for centuries and for years and have kept the independence of Ethiopia. So they will be ashamed by this institute.
Ambassador Dina underlined that the UN Charter doesn't allow anybody to interfere on the internal affairs of other countries.
You know, the UN Charter doesn't allow anybody to interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. Whatever we have in the north is our internal affairs. To the pleasure of everybody, it is a very brief operation, short operation that had been managed with low casualties, with minimum cost. And now the last phase of reconstruction has started, and people are pleasantly doing that. And at this critical juncture, when people are ready and busy at rebuilding the country, to talk about conflicts, whatever. It does it worse.
Dina told ETV that the move by the Cairo Center for African Studies is quite undiplomatic, adding that he doesn't believe the government of Egypt is sponsoring it.
This is quite undiplomatic. I wish this cannot be sponsored by the government of Egypt. If it is sponsored by that government, I tell you, it won't help it. I think the first organ that should forbid this to happen is actually the government of that country. And whoever wishes to participate on this forum should be mindful of its consequence, because this is against international norm, this is undiplomatic, this is politically also wrong.
Dina reflected that some Egyptian politicians have been busy magnifying Ethiopia's ethnic diversity to instigate clashes without much success. If they care about fairness, he said, they have to condemn the TPLF's atrocities, genocide and ethnically motivated attacks on civilians.
Meanwhile, a scholar told ETV that the attempt by the Cairo Center for African Studies to poke its nose in Ethiopia's internal affair won't bring the desired result. A scholar, Burhanul Injiso, who works for the East African Policy Research Institute, also said that these acts of provocations are meant to destabilize the nation, adding that Ethiopia will hold together in spite of these divisive moves. Kasaon Chane has the full account.
Concerning the invitation by the Cairo Center for African Studies, invitation on the conflict in Ethiopia, scheduled for December 15, Brownu said that it's insignificant since Egyptians have always been crawling around divisive agendas meant to dismember the nation. Brownu did that. The institutes leaning towards the TPLF is a manifestation of Egypt's desire to utilize the Nile for itself alone, disregarding the rights of other riparian states.
Nile, we have never used a buy, and we are planning to use now. That is a huge politics for Egypt, because Egypt has invested a lot in weakening Ethiopia to make us not to use that water, because their livelihood is basically built on that water. So they always want to see a weak Ethiopia. They always want to see Ethiopia who has her own internal headache. It is to distract us from doing any investment on this water. Egypt doesn't contribute anything to Nile.
In an exclusive interview with ETV, the East African Policy Research Institute co-founder and deputy director Brownu Magersa, Ethiopia has been dominated for 3 decades by a force that cling to power by inciting and using ethnic division, sowing seeds of discord among Ethiopians. This act, he said, cast a bad spell on Ethiopian traditional values and conception of their very existence.
This attack, this last attack on the Northern Military Command, I believe, Iman, it is from the very nature of the force, the TPLF force, and that they have been using the same strategy, especially conflict as a strategy to come to power, to stay in power for 3 decades, and now to come back to power. So it is indeed very important to understand that very nature of TPLF, that this force is a conflict entrepreneur. Because for at least half century, they have been using the same tactic, the same strategy. Once we establish that, the characterization of what happened months ago in Tigray, that TPLF has attacked the military base in Tigray, and they came out to claim it. In the first place, that is a very, very terrorist act, that they attacked the National Defense Force, and they came out to claim that they have attacked it. I think that is treason, the highest level of crime, and the measures that government should take on this act can be anything.
Responding to allegations by some Western media outlets and institutions that the Ethiopian regime is targeting ethnic Tigrans, Brahanu said this narrative is very slanted, adding the Ethiopian government must respond to take the reality on the ground clear to the global community. He said it was the TPLF rather than ethnic Tigrans which control the economy and fill the bureaucracy with erstwhile servants. Tigrans, he said, did not benefit from this apartheid system.
The fact that we don't do actually gave chance to these foreigners to speak about Ethiopia. And they speak it the way they went, and no one make them accountable. Often they make a very distorted picture about Ethiopia. So inviting foreigners who speak about Ethiopia, supporting internal factions in the country. With regard to the webinar they are arranging, I see these writers, researchers speaking about Ethiopia here and there on international medias. Part of the reason why they do that is because we don't have many Ethiopians who speak to international medias.
ስለዚህ ወንዶችም ሴቶችም ሊሰሩት የሚችሉት አይነት ቀጥ ብላችሁ እንደዚህ በመቆም እጃችሁን ወደፊት በማድረግ ስለዚህ እኔ የወንዶቹ ጭፈራ ወንዶች በተለምዶ ሲዳማ ባህላዊ ጭፈራ ሲጨፍሩ ጦር ብዙ ጊዜ ጦር ነው የሚያዘውትሩ ጦር ይዛሉ ወይም እዚህ ጋር ዱላው እንደዚህ እንዳረጋችሁት አንድ ሁለት እግራችሁን አንድ ታረ ከፍ በጣም ከፍ ሳታረጉት እግራችሁን አንድ ሁለት አንገታችሁን ወጣ እጃችሁን ገባ አንድ ሁለት ማኑ ቢተጃን ባላለ ማኑ ከህዝቦች ጋር ማኑ ሐዋሳ አዳሬ ማኑ ሰላምና አብሱሪ ማኑ ዘመን ተሻገሪ መጀመሪያ የምናረጋው እንደ መዝለል አንድ ሁለት ለዚህ እንደ መዝለል እንጨፍራለን ከዛ አንገት እንጨምርበታለን ሳልዘል አንገቴን ሳሰጋችሁ ግራ ቀኝ ቢተ ለሜ ሳሴ ሾሌ ደሞለሚዮ ሲዳሙ ወይም ዱላችሁ እንደዚህ በመያዝ ዘለል በማድረግ አንድ ሁለት አንገታችሁ ገባ መታ ደሞለሚዮ ሲዳሙ ስለዚህ እንዴት ነው የሚሆነው ስራው አንድ ሁለት ይሄን አንገታችሁን የምታረጉት እንደ ማሽከርከር እንደዚህ በጣም ሳይሆን በስሱ አንድ ሁለት አይደል
Welcome back. You're watching Addis News Hour. TPLF inflicted ferocious cruelty on prisoners because of their political stance. And Tayo Tamrat has compiled the pains the prisoners have experienced.
They came to arrest me after midnight. As they were circling me, I managed to escape by running. Then they opened fire and killed my wife. And they chased, arrested, handcuffed, and took me to a place called Humera. In a jail there, they tied up both my legs and hands together. For the first 10 days, they hardly gave me food. They threw me half a loaf of bread and a cup of water. After this, they took me to a court accusing me of murder. The court repeatedly postponed the trial. Finally, they tied up my hands to a vehicle and dragged me on the road.
The prisons in Mekelle are full of barbarities. They inflict every sort of torture and blow. We were always in quarrel with them. They called us donkeys. They would also accentuate us bandits. They named us traitors that sold Tigray state. We underwent all the sufferings only for we asked about our Amhara identity. There is our brother here whose nails were pulled out after they sentenced him to 10-year imprisonment. They also broke his leg at his knee.
They suffered me by hanging me up with rope. They buried me in hole and added upon me soil until it covered my whole body. They also used to blow the soles of my feet by tying my hands and legs from behind. The most brutal and disgusting one was that they beat us hard by stepping up and walking on our body and face. They spitted on us. They didn't consider us humans. Devil doesn't surpass them in cruelty, but in age. It's the devil which we say badly. Still, it never exceeds them with evil deeds.
By the time I returned home, a bomb had exploded. No one knew who exploded it. They asked me where I came from. And as I replied, I was from my day work at Rayak Obo. They immediately accused me of the explosion. They said I was a messenger of certain entity. Then they arrested and took me to Mekelle court. When I appeared before the court, I explained to the court that I was not a criminal, telling them that I was only a illiterate farmer. I also told them that I can't speak Tigrinya, but the court said I was messenger and I made the explosion. The judge himself said this.
Chief Executive Director for the College of Health Science in Addis Ababa University, Dawit Wandamagan, says ample rumors to be provided for those who sustained injuries by the conflict. Many people have found themselves at the center of a conflict, forced tens of thousands of people to flee to neighboring Sudan and damaged crucial infrastructures. Daniel Kasaon has more.
Dean of the College of Health Science with the Addis Ababa University, Dr. Dawit Wandamagan, is a psychiatrist. He is so curious about the psychological damage of victims of the current war and its repercussions. As a professional who specializes in psychiatry, he suggests conducive situations must be provided for those who are seriously affected by the conflict. It's crystal clear that war victims have come to suffer the atrocities of war. Displacement, witnessing violent acts, bearing arms, and being victims of direct hostilities are some of the traumatic experiences people face in war-affected areas. There's no question that such overwhelming experiences have an impact on development of attitudes toward the society, their relationships with others, and their outlook on life in general.
When those in leadership feel to be responsible for their people, you tend to feel exposed to any threat that devastates your life. You come to think you have not to protect you from dangers posed to you from anti-peace elements. If this happens to one's life, the future becomes gloomy. One can fail to have to the leadership.
Dr. Dawit also suggested solutions to affected persons, an ample room who sustain devastating damage by the current conflict and its aftermath.
The thing is how we can recover from the insecure feeling to safe conditions, especially to those who live in conflict-prone areas. Psychological treatment must be provided in order to help them come to normal conditions. They need to feel secured, let alone those in affected areas. Even we who are kept far apart from the war front need to be treated to regain our confidence in peace and security apparatus of the country.
If psychotherapy is done accordingly, many people will get out of the traumatic damage of the current saddening situation in the country.